Now, welcome again to my product evaluation series. The idea behind this product evaluation is to basically give feedback to companies and also to individuals so that they can improve the products, and also you get a bit of a handle on what is probably the best thing to get for your unit. Now, today we're going to look at my current champion for esophageal, pyloric and colonic dilatations, which is the Boston Scientific CRE balloon, versus the new challenger, so that's in the blue corner, using boxing terms, compared to the new challenger, which is made by Olympus. It's about time Olympus actually put up some more accessories for us. We like Olympus, and they make good kit, certainly hardware, and we want to see more accessories made by them. Now, they produced a new dilatation series called the EZDilator balloon. It's a full set of balloons, biliary, colonic, pyloric, esophageal balloons, achalasia balloons as well. So we're going to compare the two. So this is the challenger in the red corner. Now, packaging wise, as you probably know, the CRE balloon comes preloaded on a plastic board, which wasted a bit of resources, I think. I must admit that I do like the simple packaging of the Olympus, where there's just simply rolled up in a envelope like this. By the way, a bit of feedback to your manufacturers: these envelopes, they should be openable from any direction. You know, you should be able to turn it either way, and you always get a hold of a corner that you can open. It is annoying to have these only openable at one, because you end up kind of looking around trying to find it. So just a little tip for you. Now, the devices themselves are very different, in that with the CRE balloon you got the guide wire, of course, and which is lockable, whilst on the Olympus is not lockable. I don't think it needs to be lockable. In fact, it annoys me when some of these come ready locked, so you can't actually move the guide wire. It gets a bit frustrating. Why can't I do it? Because you have to unlock it first. Annoying. I prefer not having a lockable guide wire. And what's the risk that the guide wire is going to be dislodged? Minuscule. I don't think it will happen. By the way, in leads, we always use a guide wire for these dilatations. I think it's simply safer. It costs an extra few pounds or euros, but it's safer because as you feed this guide wire out, it keeps the semi-rigid tip away from the mucosa, particularly in the esophagus. I've done this myself. You feed the non-wire guided dilator down, and you think, if it goes in the wrong place, I can feel the resistance. No, you can't. I've had a couple of occasions where I've actually fed it underneath the mucosa, in the distal to the stricture, below the mucosa. You dilate the stricture, you think you do a good job, and you look below the stricture and it's an embarrassing mucosal tear. No significance, of course, but it's a consequence of not using a guide wire. So now we do pay the extra money for a guide wire. Now, the catheter themselves are also different. The Olympus have done a great job designing a very thin catheter, 2.1 millimeter. Under the microscope, you can see that both, compared to the 2.5 millimeter for the CRE balloon, under the microscope you can see that it's a single catheter with two compartments, the smaller one for the guide wire and the larger one is for the water, of course. Because the EZDilator balloon's got a smaller channel, it takes longer to deflate and inflate the balloon. To deflate the balloon takes 10 seconds rather for an Olympus balloon versus 5 seconds for a Boston Scientific CRE balloon. Now, I don't think that matters, to be honest. Speed is not the thing with dilatations. If anything, to do it slowly is better. I like to slowly inflate the dilator, and who cares if it takes 5 or 10 seconds to deflate the device? I don't think it matters. At the other end, under the microscope, you can see that the tip of the dilators are nicely rounded with both of them. Surprisingly, perhaps, I measured that when you feed these dilators down the biopsy channel of a 2.5 millimeter diagnostic endoscope, you would have predicted that the Olympus balloon would be exerting less drag. But it doesn't. It exerts more drag. I measured the drag at 6 newtons with the CRE balloon, which is thinner. It makes no sense compared to the CRE balloon, which exerts a resistance, a drag of 2 newtons. I can only conclude that either I had a Duff 15mm Olympus balloon, or the CRE is somehow treated, got more slippery plastic that allows it to slip down easier. Now, does that matter? With a therapeutic scope, it doesn't matter. Perhaps with a bit of lubrication down the channel beforehand, probably doesn't matter. If you've got a tortuous, difficult, complex stricture, maybe a difficult colonic stricture on a few bends, yes, then it could matter, perhaps. I do like EZDilator. Now, I should say, by the way, that both these dilators are kind of quadruple use: esophageal, pyloric, biliary, and colonic. So they're very similar in that regard. Now, at inflation, there's a little bit of a difference between the two balloons. The Olympus balloon, the EZDilator balloon, is noticeably longer compared to the CRE balloon. I don't think that matters really. The clarity of it is the same. The shouldering of the two balloons is very similar as well, and I like a broad shoulder on the balloon, so I can pull the dilator up to the edge of the scope and actually peer through the dilator and see the stricture from the inside to make sure I'm in the right place. The Olympus device has got a nice little trick here. It's got a white segment in the middle, in the center of the dilatation balloon, and you can see that through the balloon, and you can then tell that the middle of the dilator is in the middle of the stricture, and you're doing a good job. Now, feeling the two balloons, they're similar, very similar firmness at full inflation, and we're using a caliper. When I measure the size of the balloons, they're at full inflation pressure, where there should be 50mm. This particular one, I measured the CRE balloon, the Boston Scientific CRE balloon, at 14.8mm, and I measured the Olympus balloon at 15.2mm. It's virtually the same, isn't it? Now, there's a noticeable difference in the inflation steps on these balloons. Of course, they come in a full range, but the particular one that I've looked at, the Olympus group have decided to choose to have the inflation steps in 1mm steps rather than the kind of traditional 1.5mm steps. So the CRE balloon will start, in this particular range, will start at 12, go up to 13.5, and then finish at 15mm, whilst the EZDilator balloon from Olympus starts at 13.5mm, goes up to 14.5mm, and then at full inflation pressure finish at 15.5mm. I must admit that I like standardization, and the whole idea of having 1mm steps somehow implies that dilatation is a precise science. I think it's a bit more like cooking. It's an art really to get that stricture, just the right kind of stretch, no more, no less. And I don't think that I like the 1mm steps. I like the tradition, 1.5mm. No surprises. The pressure you put into these balloons is a little bit different. The full inflation pressure on the CRE balloon is 8 atmospheres compared to 6 atmospheres for the Olympus dilators. Now, the round 3 is the actual inflation devices. The Boston Scientific CRE balloon comes with a familiar gun handle that you put it in the dry, pump it up, you put it in deflation, and you deflate the balloon like this. It's familiar, I think, to most people that use through the scope dilators, whilst Olympus have developed a new device, disposable of course, which you can, there's a quick release. So to deflate, I pull the plunger back, lock it in the kind of vacuum position, and it will deflate the balloon on its own accord. The advantage of a disposable device is that, to my mind anyway, having done this many times, there is a tendency to, once you're done the dilatation, to put this gun handle on a nearby tray, which tends to be the endoscopy, the scope tray. So you put that in, and then you put the endoscope on top of it, so it can end up quite mucky, and it is quite a complex piece of machinery, quite difficult to clean. So there's an argument for having a disposable piece of kit like this, something that can be thrown away after each dilatation. Now, the cunning viewer will say, well, hold on, what stops me from just simply reusing this and not actually waste my money on buying another one. After all, this could probably take 100 dilatations, maybe more. It's a sturdy piece of kit. Well, the Olympus have thought of that, so they will only sell their dilator and the inflation device as a combo. You can't buy them separately. So it means that, of course, you can save this, but with your next Olympus dilator, you're going to get a free one anyway, so you might as well chuck it away. Now, the scale on both of them are very, very similar. We tend to use atmospheres rather than the inner scale on both of them, which is a bit different. On the CRE balloon, you got a kilopascal scale, whilst on the Olympus, you got a more familiar PSI scale. That's the only difference really between the two. Now, I do like the disposable device, I must say. Yeah, guide wire out, please. I don't like the white tip. I like a translucent tip so I can see the guide wire going out. Yeah, and that's a white marker in the middle of the dilator. I put the dilator all the way out, pull back a little bit, uncomfortably far away from the strictly inflate there, pressure of 6 I mean. Inflating, pulling back now a little bit on the balloon. Yeah, you can see the white marker there in the center of the dilator, and looking through the shoulders of the balloon, filling the void with a bit of water, I can tell that I'm in the middle of the stricture, giving it a good dilatation. Normally in leads we inflate for 60 seconds. There's no science behind it. That's just what most people seem to do. It seems to work. Here we're going to do a little bit quicker, so deflate that piece. Yeah. Yeah, that worked well. Well then, how did the competition go? How did the bout go? The first round, the packaging, I think is a marginal victory for the Olympus. I like the simple packaging, simple and cheap, saves a few resources, that's good. Now, as regard round 2, I do like the Olympus, the thin catheter, the little marker at the center of the balloon, that's great. But I really don't like the drag that the Olympus catheter generates as you put it down the endoscope. Now for round 3, the inflation device, I do like the new Olympus inflation device. It gives slow, steady inflation, which I prefer. It's very precise. And there are endoscopy nurses, they like it too. But of course we are familiar with the CRE balloon inflation device. Of course Olympus is trying to break into the market here, and they will give you a good deal on their inflation devices. And currently we can get the Olympus inflation device about £20 cheaper than we can get our CRE balloons. Now £20, since we only do about 150 dilatations a year, that will translate into a cost saving over a year of about £3,000, which in the big endoscopy unit is not that much money, I guess. And on the other hand, we have already invested in the inflation handles. We've got lots of these in the endoscopy units that we got in Leeds, so we're already paid for these. The nurses are familiar with the scales and the inflation pressures, etc. So do we have enough here to change tack and move to the new Olympus dilators? I don't quite think so. I think I'm gonna give the win to the blue corner, the Boston, and the challenger loses.